Today, I welcome to our studio Mike Canon. Mike Canon is a Republican candidate for District 31 of the Texas State Senate. That is a seat currently held by Kel Selinger. And the primary election is going to be on March the 6th. And so, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning,
You
Ricky.
are from Midland.
Pastor.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You're from Midland.
That's correct.
And you have, you've been in Midland a long time because you've done a lot of things down there.
Yes, that's right. I actually grew up in Midland and moved away after college and after the Army and law school and thought we'd never come back, but
You did.
About 15 years later, the calls started coming back, and
Well, that's great.
and we were glad to come back.
I'd like for you to elaborate on a few things. You've got some things on your advertisement that are interesting, and if we had an hour, it would be good to talk about some of those things, like sending career politicians home and getting politics out of government and reducing government excesses and regulations. I'm all for that. That's one of my things that I like so well about Trump is the deregulating that's been going on.
Absolutely. And of course, he's doing a lot of that kind of under the radar, but there's a lot of it going on, and that's really important.
Believe me, the people that are affected by it know about it.
For sure.
And those of us in radio, we know about
It's happening
some
already.
things that are
That's
happening
good.
in radio broadcasting that we're very pleased with.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. I hadn't heard many specifics, and so I'm glad to hear that y'all have received some
Yes,
some
we
relief.
have.
That's good.
Securing our borders.
Right?
Now, tell me, as a state representative, what you can do.
Well,
and where you.
Okay, there's
Where
only
can-
so much you can do at the state level. It's really the federal responsibility, but to the extent that the federal government is not doing their job, then the state can step in, and we did step in during the Obama years.
Yeah,
Governor Perry was very active, and the state spent a lot of money, and we engaged the Texas Rangers and a lot of law enforcement to shore up our borders. We did a lot of things under the radar that not a lot of people knew about, but there was a lot of law enforcement and a lot of protection that was taking place along the border and even in the Rio Grande, with boats in the Rio Grande in places.
I didn't see on your advertisement anything about sanctuary cities, but I'm sure you have a position on that, and we know the governor does, and it relates to the border security and all of that. So
I'm with the governor on that. We need to. We don't need sanctuary cities. We need to identify who the illegals are, and especially the ones who are the bad guys. We need to get them out of here, and the other ones we need to hold them accountable and set up. And the federal government needs to set up some kind of a system to deal with those people.
Yeah. Now we're in Texas. We don't have a state income tax, and we're glad.
Right, absolutely.
Most of us don't want a state income tax, and yet we're always talking about more money being needed. But you have on one of your issues that you're running on reducing taxes. So
Absolutely.
Talk about that just a little bit.
Well, I just think that our country, in large part, and I say our country, a lot of politicians have kind of developed the mindset that the solution to problems is always throwing more money at it, and I don't believe that in a lot of instances. Now, there may be some times that it might be appropriate, but I've got 2 economics degrees. I've run my own businesses, and I'm now involved with the bank, so I understand money management and reducing excesses and trying to make sure that things are efficient. I believe that our state government is not run efficiently, and I believe that if it were, we would probably be able to substantially reduce the amount of money that our state's spending, and either reallocate that money to more appropriate uses or reduce taxes, or both.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of that excess money and wasteful spending that is related to the schools, and yet we're always constantly hearing the drumbeat of more money needed for the schools. We want teachers to be paid well.
Oh yeah,
We
for
want all
sure.
that. But excess spending happens everywhere.
It does, and I think, of course, over half the Texas budget is spent on education. So
Yeah.
it's I would say it's kind of it's the poster child. It would be my primary target, simply because we spend so much money, and we have over 1,200 school districts, and if you start reducing requirements and reducing the cost of education on a one district basis, and you do that across the state, then you've had a substantial reduction in the cost of education.
Yeah.
And to me, the first place that I would look is all the requirements that the Texas Education Agency is placing upon our school districts. The number one candidate being standardized testing. I seriously question whether or not we are going about that in the proper way. And I think what's really unfortunate about it is that from what I hear talking to teachers and superintendents and administrators is that the victims of all that is the group of kids that are not the superstars, not the big accelerators, but the ones that are just trying to get by and just trying to learn, and yet they're forced to push them along to the next level when they're really not ready.
Yes, sir.
And they don't give them the tools and equipment. I say we ought to have. I don't think there's any question we ought to have maybe one standardized test around 6th or 7th grade that tests for reading, writing, arithmetic. Make sure that a child can add, subtract, divide, do fractions, percentages, and so on. But beyond that, I really think we ought to look seriously at whether or not we should continue this process of this annual testing of these children and subjecting them and their families and the teachers to all these tests and then we grade the schools. And I just, that whole process to me is suspect. And I think there's a huge amount of potential overuse of funds and a huge amount of potential waste in that area. And I think if we could find ways to cut costs and really move the focus back to really educating the kids and getting the kids ready for life, I think there's a good likelihood that we could reallocate resources. We could probably pay our good teachers better.
Yes, sir.
And I think we could equip our kids better to come out of school and actually be able to be a success in life. I say if you teach a child to do those basics, even if it takes a little longer, if they don't make it in sixth grade, if you have the additional resources to be able to really focus on that child and be able to bring them up to that level, so that they can open up a newspaper and they can do those other things, they can do math on the back of a napkin or whatever. Then if that child's not college bound, if you can teach them a skill, teach them how to use their hands, teach them how to use their mind, maybe in tech skills or welding or electricians or whatever.
Vocational type skills.
Vocational. Then I believe that there's a high likelihood that child is going to be a success in life because they're going to feel good about themselves. You can't be a success in life if you don't feel good about yourself, if you don't believe in yourself. And I think there's a whole class of kids that are coming out of school that don't believe in themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And they feel like they're failures. And some of them are really smart kids, too.
Yes, they are.
They just can't pass a particular test. That's wrong.
Yeah.
It verges on being criminal, in my opinion.
You're very passionate about this.
I really do. And I just I think we really need to roll up our sleeves and get serious about it. And because we owe it to our children, and we owe it to our society. We owe it to America.
Yes, we do. Well, now, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I'm reading into your passion and all of that explanation you just gave that you would be a supporter of charter schools.
I think regardless of how a child is being educated, we need to make sure that they are actually being educated. And that the schools meet certain standards. and so yeah, I'm fine with charter schools, but in addition, I want our public schools. I want our public schools to do is the best they can be.
Yeah.
Because if we do that, we help those kids that aren't able to go to private school or charter school, or whose parents don't choose not to. You know, some parents choose to homeschool them,
Yeah.
and I say that's fine.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, there are all kinds of different ways to educate a child. We just need to make sure that we're not leaving large groups of children.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because they're the ones that end up being problems to society.
Yeah.
That, you know, they don't feel good about themselves. They don't have a way to make a living. What do? You know what they do? They get in. They get in. They're the ones that are most likely to get in drugs. And they're most likely to get into crimes, to be able to just and a lot of that is just so that they can put money in their pocket and food on the table. Of course, maybe they're feeding some vice that they might have, but that's of course not good. But at the same time, and I'm not saying that I condone any of that whatsoever. But there is a reason that those kids, a lot of those people do what they do. It's because they don't feel good about themselves, and a lot of them don't feel good about themselves, and they don't have a skill, and they don't have the education to do something else.
My son is the pastor of the church that I started here in 2007, and he announced at the end of January, we're starting a school. I wanted to ask you if you have thoughts or a position on Christian schools, because sometimes, you know, the elite ones, teachers' unions and liberals they have animosity toward us that are in Christian education.
I'm fully supportive of Christian schools. I think if a child can be taught a lot of the foundations of faith as part of their education, I think that's great.
Yeah.
Because we all know that at the foundation of our morals and our principles are the teachings of Christ and the teachings that come out of the Bible.
Yeah.
And if they have the opportunity to learn that in school, I think that's a good thing. Now,
you mentioned faith, and you also have that in part of your advertisement here about your faith. I saw that somewhere, and either on the website or on your card. But I was going to ask you, it says here that you are a lifetime Christian and longtime parishioner of St. Anne's Church. So address that subject. I mean, after all, you're speaking over 8 radio station network that's a Christian network. So address your faith.
I'm a Christian. I'm a Catholic, and I go to church every Sunday, and as a matter of fact, I go to daily mass quite a bit.
Daily?
Yeah, daily mass, and usually in the evening, at night, I'm reading something out of the Bible or something that is biblically related.
Okay.
As I'm working my way towards bedtime, I just think, I mean, I don't think, I know that you have to have faith in your life, and that's at the very core and foundation of what makes. That's what needs to motivate people. Christ taught us a lot of good things, and He taught us how to live. And if we can just go by that, we're going to be a whole lot better. And if our world could go by that, if everyone in the world could go by that, I'd imagine how much better a world it would be.
I agree with you. Yeah. Okay, some of the things that you posted on your website that are major campaign themes are effective leadership, and of course you said on there conservative, principled, effective leaders, and as you know, almost everybody during the election.
Oh yeah.
I mean, during the run-up to the election, the campaigning proclaims themselves to be conservative.
Oh yeah.
And they're not all conservative. Define that word for me and explain to me what you mean when you say Mike Canon is a conservative.
Well, I've already talked about it to some extent. I have 2 economics degrees, and I also have a law degree, and I practiced law for a long time. But I'm a free enterprise guy. Okay? I believe I have the motto of our campaign is life, liberty, limited government, and lower taxes. Okay.
Okay.
I sincerely and strongly believe that in all of those things. I think a real conservative is interested in making sure that government operates as efficiently as possible, that the cost of government is as low as it can be, and still deliver quality services, and that the services that government provides should be very limited. We need to the government needs to protect our borders. We need to have national defense, and we need to have and the state needs to be involved in that to some extent. We need to have somebody's got to provide for transportation, and that's a government function in my opinion.
Okay.
When you start moving beyond those basic areas, then I start getting uncomfortable in terms of saying that government ought to be involved.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, I got one of the questionnaires that I received asked me what role can the state government play in helping secure more jobs for Texans. It was something like that, and I kind of chuckled when I read it, and of course my answer to that is stay out of the way.
Well, that's right. Stay out of the way.
Reduce make the tax burden as low as possible, make the regulatory burden as low as possible, and allow free enterprise to function.
Leave us alone as much as possible, please.
Exactly, and that's what I mean by being a conservative. I believe that life begins at conception.
Okay, let's talk about that just a little bit, because you've got that also posted on your website. You said that you are against abortion and believe that life begins at conception.
That's right.
Ends at natural death. So I take it from that you're saying the government has no business ending it after conception or ending it before natural death.
Absolutely. I was actually in law school whenever Roe versus Wade came down, and I remember the day it came down. Of course, I was amongst a bunch of liberals, and I was a little bit older. We'd already been through the Army, and we had Judy, who's with me today, by the way, and has been with me all the way during this campaign.
That's great.
But she and I had already had our first son in the Army, and we had our second son born shortly after we were in. After I enrolled in law school, and it was not long thereafter that Roe versus Wade came down, and I remember the people in school talking about how great that was, and I'm sitting there, I'm a young dad, and I'm thinking, this is not right.
No,
this is not right. I didn't know for sure that I was a quote conservative at that point, but I knew that I believed that was wrong.
You knew what was right and wrong.
Yeah, I read the opinion. I've read it more than once. A lot of strained reasoning.
Absolutely. Ronald Reagan said, excuse me for interrupting you, but I don't know if you have his book or not, Abortion and the Conscience of the Nation, but he says that one of the justices on the Supreme Court at that time said it was an act of raw judicial power.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the Constitution or the law that justified what they did.
Right. Yeah, and I think I know who it was. He's actually appointed by Kennedy. What?
I'm trying to think of it too.
He actually played football at the University of Colorado.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Whizzer White. Yeah.
Yes, that is. That's right. Byron White.
Justice White. Byron White is who did that.
That's right. It's exactly.
I actually met Byron White.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I was out fishing one day in Colorado.
Oh, really?
And he came down the road. I was visiting with a guy who owned some private land there, and he was actually a house guest. And the guy told me, he said, I'd like for you to meet this guy that's coming up here. And I was in law school at the time, and he stuck out his hand and said Byron White.
Wow.
And I said, as in the Justice White? And he said, that's me. What a great experience.
Oh,
and
yeah.
as he walked off, we chatted for a minute. He turned around and he said, see you in court.
That's so cool. I like
but
that.
But a really nice man and a man of great principle, too.
Yeah.
But he's right.
Boy, he nailed it when he said that.
Yeah.
And the Democrats recently voted 46 Democrats in the U.S. Senate.
I know what you're going to.
Yeah, along with 2 rhinos.
Yeah.
To not even let it come up to a vote in the Senate.
Yeah. For
The
the
vote for the 20-week,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the act, but maybe
It's basically partial birth abortion.
It is.
Yeah,
It's
right,
infanticide.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
barbaric.
Yeah, it's infanticide.
And
Yeah.
President Trump says only 7 nations in the world that do this,
Yeah.
that allow abortions after 20 weeks, and we're one of them.
Yeah. If I could show this on the radio right now, I would show, and I'll show you after we get through with the interview. But I've got a picture of my 9th grandchild. He's in utero right now.
Wow.
He's due 2 months from today on his mother's birthday.
Well,
April the 7th.
congratulations.
Yeah, and we got a picture of him, and it's amazing what the
It's a child.
yeah, but it's amazing what the scan will do, and it's very clearly a child.
It sure
And he's been
is.
a child for a long time.
Yes, he has. Yes, he has.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Every time in the Bible that an unborn child, fetus, is referred to, it's never called fetus in the Bible.
Right.
It's a legitimate word, but it's a word liberals use to hide the truth.
Right.
But it's always called a babe
Yeah.
in the Bible.
Yeah.
When Mary walked in where Elizabeth was,
Oh yeah.
babe
The babe leapt in the womb.
leapt in her womb.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And
Yep.
Mary, her later and on the trip to Bethlehem, was great with child
Yeah. Yeah.
every time
Yeah.
in the Bible.
That's right.
Okay, so you've convinced me you're strong on the pro-life issue. These are not just words that you put on your website.
No, they're not. They're not. I believe it
Yeah.
sincerely.
I know we've gone longer than I told you would go, but if I can have a minute or two more, I want to ask you a couple more questions.
Okay.
I am a strong fan of Dan Patrick,
Yeah.
our lieutenant governor. He's very strong in his faith,
Right.
and he believes that we should have righteous government. And he championed us on the unbelievably horrible bathroom bill,
Yeah.
which another rhino kept from passing.
Right.
That was Strauss.
Right.
I want you to address that, what you think about Dan Patrick, because I know that Kel Selinger, and he'll be in here for an interview soon. He and I are very friendly with each other, but I'm going to ask him what his issues are with Dan Patrick, because I know that he has issues with him. Do you?
I don't have any particular issue. I'm not saying that I would necessarily do everything exactly the way the lieutenant governor does it.
Yeah.
But he's got his ways of going about doing things, and I know that he is well-meaning and well-intentioned.
Yeah.
And he's got a good conservative foundation. I look forward to working with him because I think on most things he and I are going to see eye to eye.
Yeah.
And I'm the type of person that if I don't agree with you, if I think something can be done better, I'm going to tell you. And I'm looking forward to that opportunity with him, because not everything I'm going to say is going to be right. Not everything that he's going to say is going to be right.
Yeah.
But I hope together we'll be able to, because I know we both believe in basically the same thing, and we're trying to accomplish the same thing. And so I look forward to working with him, because I think, and with the other senators that are there that are right-minded and like-minded, I think we'll be able to accomplish a lot of things.
Yeah. No, that's what I was wanting you to address for us, and you don't necessarily have to preach like he preaches, but you can, if you're on the same page on the issues.
Right.
Like the bathroom bill. Now that passed in the Senate, and Senator Seliger voted the way we would want him to vote on it.
Judy and I were just to talk about. He was a senator back then, but I remember the night that Wendy Davis. Remember the Wendy Davis thing about the it was the abortion bill that in essence, I mean. Even though some of it is, I think some of it is still under consideration by the courts. In essence, what it did was it eliminated a lot of the Planned Parenthood sites here in Texas. I know the one in Midland had to shut down because they were that bill required them to have hospital privileges and things like that. And of course, Wendy Davis, the first time she was able to stop it, and she tried to stop it the second time. Judy and I were watching it that night, and I remember watching Dan Patrick and how impassioned his speech was in favor of that bill. And ultimately, it did pass. Dewhurst finally let it go through, but Dan Patrick was one of the main drivers to getting that bill passed, and it was the right thing to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, it did. Yes, it was.
Yeah, we watched that. We watched it on the internet. They had it. They were streaming it on the internet, and we were able to watch it. Yeah, past midnight that night. Yeah.
Wow. I have really enjoyed visiting with you, and I wanted to ask you as our final question here today. Why are you running against Senator Seliger again, and why should we vote for Mike Canon instead of the incumbent, Kel Seliger?
I don't have enough time, I don't think, to tell you right now.
Take a little bit.
I'll tell you this. You said it already. Some people call themselves conservative, but they're not.
Yeah.
His voting record is clear that he is not a conservative, even though he calls himself one. An independent study at Rice University by Professor Mark Jones has determined that he's been the most liberal Republican senators from 2011 to 2017. He and I don't know if you knew that or not.
I didn't know that, but I'm interested.
Yeah, it was published in the Texas Tribune back in June of 2017. You can look it up online.
Okay.
But that's just kind of that's an overall indicator. I'll just tell you that I've studied a lot. I've seen a lot of, and I can't go. I'm not going to go into detail right now, but I'm going to tell you that there are a lot of bills that he has been involved in that were designed to reduce the cost of government, eliminate favoritism to special interests, increase transparency, and time and time again, he's voted against those things with the Democrats primarily on most of them, when most of the Republicans are voting on the other side. And I say at some point it becomes fairly obvious, what his agenda is and what he's out to accomplish. In my opinion, it's not to make government better. It's to cater to special interests. It's to continue to allow government to operate as it has been operating, which is not necessarily. I mean, we do a lot of good things, but we can do better.
Yeah.
And I don't see his agenda as being trying to do that. My agenda is to do that. I disagree with him a lot, and I look forward to going to Austin and being able to represent the district that I believe is the most conservative district in the state of Texas.
Okay. Thank you, Mike Canon, for coming by
Thank
here
you. I
today and
appreciate it.
visiting with me. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah.